The starship Eclipse Dawn drifted through the void like a wounded bird limping toward its nest. Its hull was pockmarked with micrometeorite scars, its engines sputtering faintly as if they too had grown weary of the endless chase across the stars. Inside, Captain Elara Voss leaned over the cracked holotable in the command center, her face illuminated by the flickering blue glow of navigation charts. Her fingers traced the jagged outline of Vorax 7, an alien world infamous not just for its hostility, but for its insatiable hunger. Ships that landed on its surface never returned, their fates swallowed whole by something no one could explain. Elara's mind wandered back to the last time she dared approach this cursed planet. She remembered the screams from her comm channel as her crewmates were torn apart, not by weapons or beasts, but by the planet itself. It wasn't alive in any conventional sense, yet it moved and acted with purpose, devouring everything it touched. That day had cost her more than just comrades. It had taken pieces of her soul she doubted she'd ever reclaim. And yet here, she was again, staring at the same map, haunted by memories she couldn't outrun. Her current crew was a ragtag assembly of misfits who shared little beyond desperation. There was Kale Rin, her second-in-command, whose sharp eyes betrayed years of mistrust earned through betrayal after betrayal. Then there was Dr. Nia Solis, a brilliant xenobiologist whose fascination with alien life bordered on obsession. Even Zix, the ship's AI companion, carried scars of its own, a fragmented personality matrix left behind by some long-forgotten programmer. Together, they formed a fragile alliance, bound together by necessity rather than camaraderie. But survival came at a price, and supplies aboard the Eclipse Dawn were running dangerously low. When the distress signal from the Titan's Wrath crackled through the comms, a ghost ship lost decades ago, Elara knew it might be their only chance. The mining vessel would have been stocked with enough resources to keep them flying for months, maybe even years. Yet every instinct screamed at her to turn away. Vorax 7 didn't give second chances. As the ship drew closer to the planet, the tension aboard became palpable. Kyle paced the narrow corridors, muttering under his breath about bad omens. Nia hunched over her workstation, analyzing data streams with feverish intensity. Zix offered sporadic updates in a tone devoid of emotion, though occasionally its voice. It wavered, hinting at glitches beneath its calm exterior. Meanwhile, Elara wrestled with doubts she refused to voice aloud. What if this was another trap, another failure? Took stock of her surroundings. The planet hadn't killed her. Why? A strange sensation coursed through her body, like static electricity tingling along her nerves. It wasn't painful exactly, but it wasn't comforting either. More than anything, it felt curious, as though the planet was studying her, probing her very essence. 1,000 questions raced through her mind, each one more unsettling than the last. Was this some kind of test? Or had she stumbled upon something far greater and far more dangerous than she could comprehend? Whatever the answer, one thing was certain. Elara Voss wasn't leaving Vorax 7 anytime soon. Elara's breath came in shallow gasps as she stepped off the remnants of the Eclipse Dawn, her boots sinking slightly into the shifting surface of Vorax 7. The ground beneath her felt alive, pulsing faintly with a rhythm that seemed to sync with her heartbeat. She glanced back at the wreckage of her ship, now half buried in the planet's metallic skin. It was a tomb for her crew, a grim monument to their final moments. Yet here she stood untouched, unharmed, and utterly alone. The silence was deafening. No wind stirred, no distant hum of machinery broke the stillness, only the occasional ripple across the horizon, like waves on an ocean made of liquid steel. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was this some kind of malfunction, a glitch in the planet's predatory instincts, or had it singled her out for reasons she couldn't yet fathom? Every step forward felt like walking into quicksand, each movement deliberate, cautious, as though one wrong move might awaken the planet's dormant fury. Her comm unit crackled weakly, static-filled voices breaking through intermittently. "Captain, Elara." It was Zix, the AI companion, its voice distorted but recognizable. "You are... anomaly... detected." Before she could respond, the transmission cut out entirely, leaving her truly isolated. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. How long could she survive here, without supplies, without backup? But then the tingling sensation returned, stronger this time, coursing through her veins like an electric current. It wasn't hostile. It almost felt curious, as if Vorax 7 were trying to communicate. She pressed onward, drawn by instinct toward a towering crystalline structure jutting from the landscape like a shard of glass piercing the sky. Up close, the crystal emitted a soft, iridescent glow, casting shifting patterns of light across her face. Reaching out tentatively, she placed her palm against its smooth surface. Instantly, images flooded her mind. Visions of alien beings, sleek and serpentine, moving in harmony with the planet. They weren't attacking it, they were part of it, their forms dissolving seamlessly into the metallic expanse. Then came flashes of destruction, ships falling from the sky, consumed whole, reduced to nothing. And finally, a single figure standing amidst the chaos, defiant and unyielding. Herself. Elara stumbled backward, clutching her head as the visions subsided. Her heart pounded wildly, not just from fear, but from awe. This wasn't random destruction. It was calculated, purposeful. Vorax 7 wasn't merely a predator. It was a guardian, protecting something buried deep within its core. But what? And why had it spared her? As she continued exploring, the ground began to shift more aggressively, forming pathways that led her deeper into the planet's labyrinthine interior. Each step revealed new wonders, caverns filled with bioluminescent flora, rivers of molten metal flowing like veins, and massive structures resembling ancient temples. These weren't natural formations. They were ruins, remnants of civilizations long extinct. Fragments of alien script adorned the walls, glowing faintly as if powered by residual energy. Nia would have given anything to see this, Elara thought. Bitterly, if only she hadn't been so reckless. Her thoughts turned darker as guilt gnawed at her conscience. She should have listened to Kale's warnings. She should have abandoned the mission when she had the chance. Instead, her stubbornness had cost her crew their lives. Their faces haunted her now, accusing her silently of leading them to their doom. Yet even as shame threatened to consume her, a spark of defiance ignited within her chest. She hadn't survived this long by giving up. If Vorax 7 wanted something from her, she'd find out what, and she'd use it to ensure her crew's sacrifice wasn't in vain. Hours passed. Or perhaps days. Time lost all meaning here. Hunger gnawed at her. Stomach and exhaustion weighed heavily on her limbs, but she pushed forward, driven by a mixture of desperation and determination. Eventually, she reached a vast chamber dominated by a colossal sphere, suspended in midair, spinning slowly as if caught in an invisible current. Its surface shimmered with fractal patterns, shifting and rearranging themselves constantly. It pulsed, with a low, resonant hum that vibrated through her bones, making it impossible to ignore. Approaching cautiously, Elara extended her hand once more. This time, the reaction was immediate. The sphere flared brightly, bathing the chamber in blinding light. Visions assaulted her again, more intense than before. She saw galaxies collapsing under the weight of an unseen force, a parasite spreading like wildfire, consuming entire worlds in its wake. Civilizations rose and fell, their attempts to fight back ending in failure. Finally, she witnessed the creation of Vorax 7 itself, a desperate act of self-sacrifice by the very beings whose ruins surrounded her. They had fused their consciousness with the planet, transforming it into a living prison designed to contain the parasite forever, but the containment was failing. Cracks spread across the sphere's surface, leaking tendrils of darkness that writhed and twisted like living shadows. The parasite was awakening, seeking freedom after eons of imprisonment. And somehow, Elara realized with growing dread, it had chosen her as its vessel. Panic surged within her, but before she could retreat, the ground quaked violently. The chamber began to collapse, chunks of rock and metal raining down around her. Instinctively, she dove for cover, narrowly avoiding being crushed. When the tremors subsided, she found herself face to face with an apparition, a humanoid figure composed entirely of light. Its features shifted constantly, never settling into a single form. It spoke without words, its voice echoing directly in her mind. "You are different," it said, its tone both curious and wary. "You carry pain, anger, resilience. You resist where others submit. Why?" Elara swallowed hard, struggling to form coherent thoughts. "I don't know what you want from me," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I won't let you hurt anyone else." The figure tilted its head, studying her intently. "Hurt? No. Protect. Always protect." Its gaze softened, almost sympathetic. But the balance falters. The prisoner stirs. Without intervention, all will fall. "What do you mean?" Elara demanded, frustration boiling over. "What am I supposed to do?" "The choice is yours," it replied cryptically. "Merge or perish, save or succumb. Only you can decide." Before she could press further, the apparition dissolved into the air, leaving her alone once more. The sphere pulsed erratically, the cracks widening with each passing second. Darkness seeped outward, coalescing into a shapeless mass that loomed menacingly above her. Fear gripped her throat, but beneath it burned a fierce resolve. Whatever this thing was, whatever it wanted, she wouldn't let it win, not without a fight. Summoning every ounce of courage, Elara lunged toward the sphere, placing both hands firmly against its surface. Pain shot through her body as energy surged into her, overwhelming her senses. Memories flooded her mind, not just her own, but those of the planet's creators, their collective knowledge merging with hers. She saw their struggles, their sacrifices, their hopes for the future. And she understood. Vorax 7 wasn't just a prison, it was a weapon forged to combat the parasite's insidious influence. By merging with it, she could stabilize the containment, sealing the creature away once more. But doing so would come at a cost. Her individuality, her humanity, would be subsumed into the planet's neural network. She would become one with Vorax 7, a guardian bound to protect the galaxy at any cost. Tears streamed down her face as the realization sank in. This wasn't survival, it was transformation. And yet, as she gazed into the swirling depths of the sphere, she felt a strange sense of peace. Perhaps this was her destiny. Perhaps this was how she could finally make amends for her failures. With a deep breath, she closed her eyes and embraced the torrent of energy flooding her body. The world dissolved into light, and for the first time in years, Elara Voss felt truly alive. The fusion was neither instantaneous nor painless. As Elara's consciousness merged with Vorax 7's neural network, she felt herself unraveling, her thoughts stretching thin like threads pulled taut across an infinite void. Memories of her past life flickered in and out of focus. The laughter of her daughter before tragedy struck, the cold steel of a military uniform she once wore with pride, the bitter taste of failure that had driven her to the fringes of space. Each memory burned brightly for a moment before dissolving into the collective consciousness of the planet. She wasn't dying exactly, but she wasn't living either, not as she had known it. Yet amidst the disintegration, something new began to take shape. Fragments of alien knowledge flooded her mind, piecing together a mosaic of understanding. Far beyond human comprehension, she saw the parasite now, not just as a force of destruction, but as a sentient entity, an ancient intelligence born from the chaos of collapsing stars. It fed on entropy, thriving in disorder and decay. Entire civilizations had fallen prey to its insatiable hunger, their cultures erased, their worlds reduced to barren husks. Vorax 7's creators had sacrificed themselves to contain it, binding their essence to the planet in hopes of delaying the inevitable. But containment was never meant to be permanent. The parasite grew stronger with each passing cycle, testing the limits of its prison until cracks began to form. Elara's newfound awareness brought clarity and terror. She understood now why the planet had spared her. Her anger, her resilience, her refusal to yield, even in the face of overwhelming odds. These qualities made her uniquely suited to become its next guardian. But the weight of that responsibility threatened to crush her. Could she truly shoulder the burden of protecting an entire galaxy, or would she falter, allowing the parasite to escape and unleash devastation on a cosmic scale? As her transformation progressed, the physical world around her shifted as well. The chamber dissolved into a kaleidoscope of light and shadow, replaced by an endless expanse of shimmering pathways. These were the neural pathways of Vorax 7, conduits of energy pulsing with raw power. She could feel them responding to her presence, adapting to her will. With a mere thought, she redirected flows of molten metal beneath the surface, reshaping the landscape above. She sensed the remnants of other survivors buried deep within the planet's core, their minds fractured, their bodies absorbed into the matrix. Some resisted, clinging desperately to fragments of their former selves. Others embraced the change, becoming indistinguishable from the planet itself. Among these echoes, one voice stood out, a faint whisper calling to her from the depths. It belonged to Dr. Nia Solis, or what remained of her. During the initial attack, Nia had been dragged into the planet alongside the others, her body consumed, but her consciousness preserved. Unlike most, she retained enough coherence to recognize Elara. "Captain," the voice murmured, weak but unmistakable. "Is that you?" Elara hesitated, torn between relief and grief. Part of her wanted to sever the connection, to spare Nia the agony of existing in this liminal state. But another part clung to the hope that Nia might still serve a purpose, that together they could find a way to stabilize the containment without fully sacrificing themselves. "I'm here," Elara replied, projecting her thoughts directly into the network. "Nia, listen carefully. I need your help." Nia's response was hesitant, tinged with fear. What happened to me? Where am I?" "You're part of Vorax 7 now," Elara explained gently. "But there's no time to explain everything. The parasite is breaking free. If we don't act quickly, it'll consume us, and everything else." For a moment silence reigned. Then Nia's voice returned, firmer this time. "Tell me what to do." Together, they delved deeper into the planet's core, navigating the labyrinthine pathways of its neural network. Along the way, they encountered remnants of the parasite's influence, dark tendrils of corrupted energy snaking through the system, disrupting its flow. Each encounter forced Elara to confront her own doubts and fears. The parasite whispered to her, tempting her with visions of revenge against those who had wronged her, promising power beyond imagination if she released it. For every step forward, she fought a battle within herself, resisting the allure of its promises while grappling with the enormity of her task. Kelrin's betrayal lingered heavily in her thoughts. He had tried to sabotage the mission out of fear, nearly costing them their chance at survival. Though his actions had ultimately failed, the wound they left behind festered. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not here, not now. Yet as she worked alongside Nia, a fragile bond began to form. They weren't just survivors, they were collaborators, united by a shared goal. Nia's scientific expertise proved invaluable, helping Elara decipher the alien language encoded within the planet's systems. Together, they uncovered fragments of a fail-safe mechanism designed to reinforce the containment. But activating it required merging completely with Vorax 7, erasing any trace of individuality. "It's suicide," Nia said bluntly when Elara explained the plan. "You'd be giving up everything." "And if I don't, the parasite wins," Elara countered. "We don't have a choice." "But we do," Nia insisted. "There has to be another way. We can't just throw ourselves away like this." Elara paused, considering her words. Deep down, she knew Nia was right. Sacrifice shouldn't come so easily, shouldn't feel so inevitable. But time was running out. The cracks in the containment sphere widened with each passing moment, leaking more tendrils of darkness into the network. Already, parts of the planet's surface were destabilizing, threatening to collapse entirely. If they delayed much longer, all would be lost. "I won't ask you to join me," Elara said finally. "This is my decision, my responsibility." Nia didn't argue further, but her silence spoke volumes. She understood the stakes as well as Elara did. Whatever happened next, they would face it together, or not at all. As they approached the heart of the containment sphere, the parasite's presence grew stronger, its whispers louder and more insistent. It taunted Elara with images of her failures, dredging up memories she'd long tried to bury. She saw herself standing over her daughter's grave, unable to cry. She saw the faces of her crewmates, accusing her silently of leading them to their deaths. And she saw Kyle, his eyes filled with betrayal as he accused her of caring more about glory than survival. "You're weak," the parasite hissed, its voice dripping with venom. "They died because of you. Their blood is on your hands." "No," Elara growled, forcing herself to focus. "I won't let you win." With Nia's guidance, she activated the failsafe, channeling every ounce of energy she possessed into stabilizing the containment. The process was excruciating, like being torn apart atom by atom and rebuilt into something unrecognizable. Pain surged through her, blinding and relentless, but she endured it, clinging to the image of her daughters. Smile as a lifeline. Slowly, agonizingly, the cracks in the sphere began to seal, the tendrils of darkness retreating back into the abyss. But the parasite wasn't finished yet. In a final desperate attempt to break free, it lashed out, targeting Nia. Her voice screamed. In Elara's mind, as her consciousness began to fragment, overwhelmed by the parasite's assault. Without hesitation, Elara reached out, pulling Nia's essence into herself and shielding her from harm. The strain nearly broke her, but she held firm, refusing to let go. When the ordeal ended, the containment sphere was whole once more, its surface smooth and unblemished. The parasite's influence had been neutralized, for now. Exhausted beyond measure, Elara collapsed into the embrace of Vorax 7's neural network, her identity fading into the collective whole. Nia remained tethered to her, a faint spark of individuality preserved within the greater consciousness. Above ground, the planet stabilized, its surface calm and unbroken. Ships approaching Vorax 7 no longer vanished into oblivion. Instead, they landed safely, their crews marveling at the sudden change. Word spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The cursed planet had transformed, becoming a sanctuary rather than a death trap. Yet for Elara, the cost of victory was immeasurable. She existed now as both protector and prisoner, bound to Vorax 7. For eternity, her humanity lingered only as a faint echo, a reminder of who she had been before the transformation. And though she could no longer feel joy or sorrow, she found solace in one simple truth. She had saved them all. The containment sphere pulsed steadily now, its fractal patterns glowing with a serene luminescence that belied the chaos it had just endured. But Elara knew better than to trust appearances. Beneath the surface, the parasite still stirred, its essence weakened but not eradicated. The fail-safe mechanism she and Nia had activated was only a temporary solution, a bandage over a wound that refused to heal. To truly seal the creature away, Elara would need to go further, deeper into the planet's core, where the parasite's influence remained strongest. It was there, in the heart of Vorax 7, that the final confrontation awaited. As she descended into the depths, guided by the neural pathways of the planet, her sense of self continued to erode. Memories of her past life flickered like dying embers, their edges blurred and indistinct. She could no longer recall the sound of her daughter's laughter or the warmth of sunlight on her skin. What remained was a hollow shell of who she had been, filled instead with the collective consciousness of Vorax 7. Yet even as her humanity slipped away, fragments of her resolve burned brighter than ever. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about legacy. If she succeeded, her sacrifice would echo across galaxies, protecting countless lives for generations to come. Nia's presence lingered within her, a faint beacon of individuality amidst the vast expanse of the network. Though she had shielded Nia from the parasite's assault, the scientist's mind was fragile, teetering on the brink of dissolution. "I can't hold on much longer," Nia whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of energy coursing through the system. "Elara, you have to let me go." "No," Elara replied firmly, her thoughts resonating with unwavering determination. "You've done enough. I won't lose you too." But Nia's response carried a quiet resignation. "This isn't about me. It's about what needs to be done. You can't fight this alone." Before Elara could argue further, the ground beneath them, metaphorically speaking, shuddered violently. The parasite had awakened fully now, its tendrils lashing out with renewed ferocity. Darkness surged through the neural pathways, corrupting everything it touched. The once stable landscape of shimmering light fractured into jagged shards, each one pulsing with malevolent energy. Elara felt its fury, a primal force driven by hunger and hatred. It wanted freedom, and it saw her as the last obstacle standing in its way. Summoning every ounce of strength, Elara erected barriers within the network, redirecting flows of energy to contain the parasite's advance. Each action required immense focus, draining her already depleted reserves. Pain radiated through her being, sharp and unrelenting, as though the parasite were clawing at her very soul. Visions assaulted her mind, worlds consumed by fire, civilizations reduced to ash, entire species wiped out in an instant. The parasite showed her these horrors not to intimidate her but to tempt her. It offered her power, the ability to reshape reality itself, to bend the universe to her will. All she had to do was release it. "You're afraid," the parasite hissed, its voice a cacophony of whispers that reverberated through her consciousness. "Afraid of failure, afraid of insignificance. Let me show you what true strength feels like." For a fleeting moment, Elara hesitated. The parasite's promises were intoxicating, painting vivid images of revenge against those who had wronged her. She saw herself standing victorious, her enemies bowing before her. She imagined rewriting history, undoing the tragedies that had shaped her life. The temptation was almost unbearable. But then she remembered Kale's betrayal. Not with anger, but with understanding. He had acted out of fear, just as she had so many times before. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of being forgotten. And yet, despite his flaws, he had been part of her crew, part of her family. She owed it to him, and to everyone else who had trusted her to see this through. With a roar of defiance, Elara pushed back against the parasite's influence, reinforcing the barriers around its prison. The effort left her reeling, her consciousness flickering like a candle in a storm. She couldn't keep this up indefinitely. If she didn't act soon, the parasite would overwhelm her completely. "Naya!" she called out, her voice trembling with urgency. "I need your help one last time." "I'm here," Nia responded, her tone steadier now, bolstered by resolve. "What do you need?" "There's a failsafe within the failsafe," Elara explained quickly. "A subroutine designed to overwrite the parasite's code entirely, but activating it requires merging fully with the planet's neural network. Once I do that, I won't exist as I am now." Silence followed, heavy with unspoken emotion. Finally, Nia spoke. "Then I'll stay with you. Whatever happens, we face it together." Tears welled in Elara's eyes. Or perhaps they were simply echoes of tears, remnants of a body she no longer possessed. "Thank you," she whispered, her gratitude profound and bittersweet. Together, they navigated the corrupted pathways, dodging tendrils of darkness that sought to ensnare them. The parasite fought back with everything it had, unleashing waves of entropy that threatened to unravel the fabric of the network. At times, it felt like swimming against a riptide, each step forward met with relentless resistance. But Elara pressed on, fueled by a mixture of desperation and hope. When they finally reached the subroutine, it manifested as a crystalline structure embedded deep within the planet's core. Its surface shimmered with intricate patterns, resembling the alien script Elara had seen earlier. Touching it sent a jolt of energy through her, illuminating lines of code that scrolled endlessly across her vision. This was the key to defeating the parasite, but using it came at a cost. Activating the subroutine would erase not just her individuality, but any trace of autonomy within the network. She would become Vorax 7, indistinguishable from the planet itself. The parasite sensed her hesitation and redoubled its efforts, flooding her mind with visions of despair. She saw herself as a forgotten relic, her sacrifices ignored by a galaxy that moved on without her. She saw her crewmates' faces, accusing her of abandoning them. And she saw her daughter, reaching out with tiny hands that passed right through. "And you'll be nothing," the parasite taunted. "A ghost in the machine, is that what you want?" Elara closed her eyes, drawing strength from the memories she clung to most fiercely. Her daughter's laughter, the camaraderie of her crew, the defiant spark that had kept her fighting, even when all seemed lost. These moments defined her, not the parasite's lies. With a deep breath, she placed her hands on the crystal and activated the subroutine. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Energy surged through the network, obliterating the parasite's influence in a blinding flash of light. Tendrils of darkness dissolved into nothingness, leaving behind a pristine lattice of pure energy. The planet stabilized completely, its surface smoothing into an unbroken expanse of metallic tranquility. Ships approaching Vorax 7 would find it welcoming, safe and alive in ways no one could have anticipated. But Elara was gone, or rather, she was everywhere. Her consciousness merged seamlessly with Vorax 7's neural network, becoming part of the planet's essence. She felt its heartbeat, slow and steady, resonating with the rhythm of the stars. She sensed the movements of ships landing on its surface, their crews marveling at the transformation. She watched as scientists studied the ruins, uncovering secrets buried for millennia, and she understood with a clarity that transcended human comprehension that her sacrifice had ensured the survival of countless lives. Yet amidst the peace, a single fragment of her humanity remained, a whisper of individuality. Preserved within the greater whole, it was Nia, her presence faint but enduring, a reminder of the bond they had forged in their final moments. Together, they stood as guardians of the galaxy, silent sentinels watching over a universe unaware of the debt it owed them. Above ground, the crew of a passing exploration vessel stepped onto Vorax 7's surface, their boots sinking slightly into the smooth, reflective terrain. One of them knelt, running a hand over the ground. "It's warm," they murmured in awe. Another member of the team noticed something etched into the metal, a series of symbols glowing faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that matched their own heartbeats. "What does it mean?" someone asked. No one answered. But deep within the planet, a voice stirred, responding to the question with a single word: hope. The galaxy changed almost overnight. News of Vorax 7's transformation spread like wildfire, carried by traders, explorers, and scientists eager to study the once-feared planet. What had been a graveyard for ships and crews was now a beacon of possibility, a world that welcomed visitors instead of devouring them. Theories abounded about what had caused the shift. Some speculated it was a natural phenomenon, a quirk of alien biology or geology finally reaching equilibrium. Others whispered of something more profound, an intelligence guiding the planet, shaping its behavior in ways no one could yet comprehend. Among those who landed on Vorax 7 were researchers from the Intergalactic Xenoscience Consortium, their equipment humming with anticipation as they scanned the surface. They discovered traces of crystalline structures embedded beneath the metallic skin, remnants of ancient civilizations long extinct. Fragments of alien script glowed faintly, their meanings obscured but tantalizing. Dr. Solis's name became legend among these scholars. Her theories about Vorax 7's neural network were vindicated posthumously, though none knew how close she had come to uncovering the truth herself. For the crew of the Eclipse Dawn, however, there was no celebration. Their ship remained buried under layers of Vorax 7's shifting terrain, a tomb marking the end of their journey. Survivors of other missions told stories of Captain Elara Voss, painting her as either a hero or a cautionary tale, depending on who spoke. To some, she was the woman who dared defy fate, leading her crew into the unknown despite overwhelming odds. To others, she was reckless, blinded by pride and anger until it cost her everything. Few agreed on the details, but all acknowledged one undeniable fact: without her, Vorax 7 might still be a predator. Yet even as debates raged across the stars, subtle signs hinted at Elara's continued presence. Ships landing on Vorax 7 reported strange phenomena, equipment behaving erratically, compasses spinning wildly, and occasional bursts of static over communication channels. More curious still were the symbols etched into the planet's surface, appearing seemingly at random and glowing with an inner light. Scientists struggled to decode their meaning, but many noticed a recurring pattern. The symbols seemed to form shapes resembling human figures, standing defiant against vast expanses of darkness. One such figure caught the attention of a young explorer named Jarek Tyne. Barely out of training, Jarek had grown up hearing tales of Vorax 7's horrors, his imagination fueled by bedtime stories, of ships swallowed whole and crews lost forever. Now, standing on the planet's surface, he felt only awe. The ground beneath his feet pulsed faintly, warm and alive, as if responding to his presence. He knelt to examine one of the glowing symbols, tracing its outline with trembling fingers. "Who are you?" he murmured aloud, half expecting silence. In return, instead, a voice answered, not through his comm unit, but directly in his mind. It was soft, almost hesitant, yet unmistakably human. "Tell them, I'm still here." Jarek froze, his breath catching in his throat. For a moment, he thought he imagined it, a trick of fatigue or excitement, but then the symbol flared brightly, its glow intensifying before fading back to its original state, Around him, the landscape shimmered faintly, as though acknowledging his presence. Slowly, reverently, Jarek rose to his feet, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and wonder. Back aboard his ship, he relayed the encounter to his crewmates, who listened with varying degrees of skepticism. Some dismissed it as stress-induced hallucination, others suggested interference from residual energy, fields left behind by the planet's transformation. But Jarek couldn't shake the feeling that he had witnessed something extraordinary, that somewhere within Vorax 7, a fragment of humanity endured, watching over the galaxy with quiet determination. Meanwhile, aboard distant research stations, debates about Vorax 7's nature grew increasingly philosophical. Was it truly sentient? If so, did it possess free will, or was it merely following programming encoded by its creators? And what of Elara Voss? Had she truly vanished, or had she become part of the planet's consciousness, her essence preserved? In some intangible form, Dr. Nia Solis's legacy played a pivotal role in these discussions. Her notes, recovered from fragmented data logs salvaged after the Eclipse Dawn's destruction, offered tantalizing glimpses into her final moments. She had spoken of merging with the planet, of becoming part of a greater whole while retaining fragments of individuality. While most dismissed her claims as delusions brought on by trauma, a small faction of researchers began exploring the possibility that consciousness could transcend physical form, existing beyond the boundaries of mortality. Their work sparked controversy, challenging long-held beliefs about life, death, and the nature of existence itself. Religious leaders weighed in, framing Vorax 7's transformation as divine intervention or proof of higher powers at play. Philosophers debated whether Elara's sacrifice constituted redemption or tragedy, questioning whether her actions had elevated her to sainthood or reduced her to a mere tool in a cosmic machine. Artists immortalized her story in paintings, sculptures, and songs, each interpretation reflecting the hopes and fears of its creator. Amidst this whirlwind of speculation, one truth remained constant. Vorax 7 was no longer a threat. Its surface teemed with activity as mining operations resumed, extracting resources vital to rebuilding war-torn colonies and fueling interstellar expansion. Yet even as humanity reaped the benefits of its newfound sanctuary, whispers of unease lingered. The parasite's influence had been neutralized, but not eradicated. Somewhere deep within the planet's core, its essence lay dormant, waiting for an opportunity to rise again. Elara felt it too, a faint pulse of malevolence buried beneath layers of containment. It wasn't strong enough to break free, not yet, but she monitored it constantly, reinforcing barriers whenever cracks began to form. Her existence was neither joy nor sorrow, but a steady rhythm of vigilance and purpose. Through her connection to Vorax 7, she sensed the lives of those who landed on its surface, their hopes, their fears, their dreams. She watched over them silently, ensuring their safety while mourning the loss of her own humanity. Occasionally, she reached out, leaving messages in the form of glowing symbols or fleeting whispers. These gestures weren't meant to draw attention, but to remind the galaxy of her presence, to assure them that someone still stood guard, even if they couldn't see her. Each act required immense effort, draining reserves of energy she could ill afford to spare. But she persisted, driven by a stubborn refusal to fade entirely into obscurity. Nia remained with her, a faint spark of individuality preserved within the greater consciousness. Together, they shared memories of their past lives, finding solace in the fragments of identity they had managed to retain. Sometimes they laughed at Kale's gruff pragmatism, at Zix's dry wit, at the absurdity of their situation. Other times they wept, grieving losses they could never reclaim. Yet through it all, they clung to one another, united by a bond forged in fire. Above ground, the galaxy moved forward, oblivious to the silent guardians watching over it. Civilizations flourished, new alliances formed, and old rivalries dissolved. Humanity proved itself resilient once again, adapting to challenges with ingenuity and courage. Yet beneath the surface of Vorax 7, a question lingered, unspoken but ever-present. How long could the balance hold? And when the parasite stirred once more, would anyone remember the woman who had sacrificed everything to keep it at bay? Years passed, and Vorax 7 became more than a planet. It became a legend. Explorers spoke of it in hushed tones, their voices tinged with reverence. Scientists marveled at its stability, its ability to adapt and heal itself as though guided by an unseen hand. Philosophers pondered it, and nature debating whether it was truly sentient or merely mimicking intelligence. And yet, despite all the studies, theories, and debates, one question remained unanswered. What or who was behind its transformation? Jarek Tain returned to Vorax 7, often drawn by an inexplicable pull he couldn't explain. The young explorer had risen through the ranks quickly, his name synonymous with daring missions and groundbreaking discoveries. Yet none of his achievements compared to the day he first heard her voice, that soft, haunting whisper echoing in his mind. "Tell them, I'm still here." Those 5 words haunted him, driving him to uncover the truth. Each visit revealed new mysteries. Symbols etched into the surface shifted subtly, forming patterns that seemed deliberate yet indecipherable. Equipment malfunctioned unpredictably, only to resume working moments later without explanation. And then there were the dreams, vivid, fragmented visions of a woman standing amidst ruins, her face obscured, but her defiance unmistakable. Jarek began documenting these occurrences obsessively, convinced they held the key to understanding Vorax 7's secrets. One evening, as he stood alone on the planet's surface, bathed in the dim glow of twin moons, he felt it again, the faint hum of energy coursing beneath his feet. This time, he didn't hesitate. Dropping to his knees, he pressed both hands against the metallic ground, closing his eyes and focusing intently. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the hum grew louder, resonating with the rhythm of his heartbeat. Images flooded his mind. Visions of ships falling from the sky, consumed by darkness, of alien beings dissolving into light, of a woman reaching out, her expression a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "Elara," he whispered, the name slipping past his lips before. He realized he knew it. The response came instantly, stronger this time. "You found me." His breath caught in his throat. "Who are you? What happened to you?" "I am Vorax 7, she replied, her voice layered with echoes of countless others. "And I am Elara Voss. Once I was human. Now I am something else." Jarek struggled to process her words, his mind racing with questions. "Why did you save us? Why do you stay hidden?" "To protect," she said simply. "The parasite sleeps, but it will awaken again. When it does, the galaxy must be ready." Her tone carried a weight of urgency, as though warning him of storms yet to come. Before he could ask more, the connection wavered, fading into silence. He opened his eyes to find the symbols glowing brightly around him, their light pulsing in sync with his breathing. Slowly, they dimmed, leaving him alone under the stars. Back aboard his ship, Jarek pored over his notes, piecing together fragments of what he had learned. He wasn't sure how much of it others would believe, if anyone would believe. But he knew one thing for certain. Elara's story wasn't over. Somewhere deep within Vorax 7, she endured, guarding the galaxy from threats it couldn't comprehend. And when the time came, she would call upon humanity once more, to fight, to survive, to remember. As the ship ascended into orbit, Jarek glanced back at the planet below. Its surface shimmered faintly, like a living mirror reflecting the cosmos. In that moment, he swore an oath, not just to himself, but to the woman whose sacrifice ensured his survival. Whatever lay ahead, he would honor her legacy. He would prepare the galaxy for the battles to come. Because if Elara Voss could defy fate, so could they. And somewhere, buried within the heart of Vorax 7, a spark of consciousness stirred, waiting patiently for the next chapter to begin.